What's up, you guys? Welcome to episode 487 of the Established Run NBA podcast. I'm Mike Gallagher here with Drew Dinkmeyer, and it is fantasy draft week here on October 13th. A lot of people are doing fantasy drafts. We've got the kit pumping, put out more content today, put out all the exploit ranks over the weekend. So we are in really good shape here. We're going to do one of our favorite pods. It's the perfect draft. So we are not drafting against each other, but Nick and I are going to talk through where we want to pick. We're kind of drafting off a 9-cat 12-team league. Again, we're going to drop a lot of stuff from the kit, but there's more in the kit. I'm going to write this column up formally. We'll have more names in there. Obviously, the draft, your draft is not going to go perfect, but for this exercise, it is. So, Dink, how's it going?
It's great, and this is a fun exercise to do. It kind of lays out and shows where our rankings really kind of differ from the field and where there's value and how to take advantage of that by like lining up your roster on the early front to know what you're going to be able to take advantage of in the later front. It gets to talking about kind of strategy differences in terms of how you build teams. I think one of the beautiful things about 9-category rotisserie fantasy basketball is there's lots of different strategies that you can implement in terms of team building, and one player can be like the best pick for a team at, pick 58 that's not even relevant to another team at 58 just because of the way that you started your draft and different things like that. So I think there is an art to drafting these teams. I think our draft kit can really help with that, both from the projection side of things, but also all the content and the context that Mike has added throughout the draft kit. And that's what we're going to do today here. We're going to talk through what an ideal perfect draft would be for us, some different decision points that you might have, and how it's sort of like if you're a kid from my era, which look, I'm 43 now, we had these choose your own adventure books that you used to read where, you get to the end of a part of a story and then it would be flip to page 62 if you want to take this route, or flip to page 85 if you want to take this route. And I think that's some of what this perfect draft is as well, is like based on who you take early on might put you in a little bit different direction later on. But there's a lot of good values, especially for category-based scoring from our rankings this year compared to the ADP rankings. The ADP rankings on different sites are wildly different. So you really have to check. We're going to focus in on Yahoo as the ranks in the ADP set that we're using here to kind of work through. But I will note some of the differences between some of the high stakes sites and different things like that in terms of where ADP falls. But I think this is a really fun exercise. It gets me right in the mindset. I know I've got a fantasy draft on Thursday night, so this gets me right in the mindset for it. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are drafting this weekend as the season kicks off next Tuesday. So excited to do this exercise with you, Mike.
Yeah, it should be really fun. Again, we're not drafting against each other. We're going to have a lot of overlapping here. We obviously like a lot of the same players, but yeah, it's going to be a 12-team 9-cat. So in general, we took it as kind of in the vicinity. So the quote-unquote early picks in round 1 and round 3 are pick first through third in that round. That's generally where we're going off the Yahoo ADP. But yeah, one popular question I did want to tackle here is, where do you want to pick? So Think if you're sitting there and you have the 30 minutes before the picks come out, where are you hoping to get your draft pick to land?
You always want to be at the top of the draft. Unfortunately, in basketball, it's not kind of like football, where football sometimes there might be tier breaks in players and different things where you're like, okay, and there's enough variance in how players ultimately perform in a season that you might be like, okay, I'd rather pick 6th this year in the middle of the draft and be kind of in control of things, or I'd rather pick 8th because I know I can get this player that's the end of a tier, and then that'll get me in the middle of the next tier. In our 9-category total value rankings, which is sort of a summary of a summation of Z scores for each of the category values based on some slight differences, like we downweight categories for turnovers and some things like that. We've got Jokic at 12.1, Wemby at 10.7, SGA, the third best pick, at 10.3. And then the rest of the first round, for the most part, Luka is a 7, Anthony Edwards is a 6. The rest of the first rounds is 5s. So it's you need 2 first round players to equal one of the top picks generally. So it's just such a stark advantage in terms of where you're drafting. This is why in fantasy basketball, it does help to have third round reversal quite a bit in terms of trying to neutralize. And that's why it also, we'll talk through, if you're picking towards the end of the draft, towards the back half of the first round of the draft, and you're not in a third round reversal league, you might want to consider embracing a little bit more risk throughout the back half of your draft, because you have to hit some home runs to catch the teams at the top, just generally how this works.
Yep, for sure. So yeah, we're going to start out with what we're calling the early first, aka team 1 for us. So yeah, it's the perfect draft. So if it's perfect, you should have Jokic in your team. I picked him. I think, like you said, it's just like such a no brainer. Yes, he does have like a weaker playoff schedule depending on where your playoffs are, but like you just can't pass on that guy. That guy's just like built for 9 categories on top of the rebounding, the good percentages, the assists, which goes a really long way. Especially if you're picking on the end, the point guard tiers could really drop off. So if you're waiting, 20 picks between picks, and you could really miss out on point guards. But if you have Jokic, you're basically covering your assists pretty strongly there. So quite easily, Jokic is like the number one perfect draft pick. And then, like Dink said, Wembanyama, SGA are all like very, very strong picks. And Luka's certainly also worthy of consideration as a strong fourth pick.
Yeah, and I would say the builds that you're having with Jokic and Wemby are somewhat similar because positionally, they're both like center, power forward kind of bigs that you're looking at. So positionally, they're somewhat similar, and so you'll build somewhat similarly. The only difference is a Jokic team, you're going to need to supplement a little bit more block value than a Wemby team. So we'll talk through different iterations of the draft where you might not be adding more blocks to a Wemby team because he's just such a category monster in that category. SGA teams are going to be built a little bit different. So we'll talk through what like an SGA team might look like in terms of some of these other round decisions that you're taking. So yeah, we've got to, if you have the ability to take one of these three guys, though, these three guys outside of turnovers, which like every good player is a negative value in turnovers just because that's the way it works. Like the best players have the ball in their hands more. These are the only players that are positive value from a Z-score perspective in every category, like literally every category. So if you can get a foundation of one of those three pieces, Jokic, Wembanyama, or Shea, you're just off to such kind of a hot start compared to your opponents. And it really allows you the flexibility to take on a player that maybe is not perfect at a category later on because you just got such a great foundation built up with those three.
Yeah, and just to note, for those of you who do an auction draft, the ranks all have that all laid out for you guys. And we have Jokic on a $200 budget at $94, Wembanyama at $83, Shea at $80, and then a big dip to Luka at $56. So yeah, getting top three pick is obviously a huge deal. So yeah, like we said, we kind of ironed out that first pick there. So for teams picking late in round one, I went with Devin Booker. I really like Devin Booker. I like the Jordan Ott offense. I think he's going to play a lot. I don't have any concerns about Jordan Ott implementing a Kenny Atkinson style of not playing his guys heavy minutes. His team doesn't have the talent to do that. So I'm expecting Booker, who had a 30 usage rate in the preseason. I like the way he's driving in the paint more. I think there's going to be a ton of assists. I think he's got a good shot, 8 assists. Always been a pretty good player for percentages. Expecting to get to the line a ton, perhaps being top 5 to 10 in that category output. So feel really good about Devin Booker. Did want to kind of get a guard there. On the back end, I think he's, like I said, he's going to have a point guard-esque. He besides Jokic, like he's a candidate to be, second or third among non-true point guards for assists. So really, like Booker, I think he's going to be a really strong 9-cat, especially 8-cat player.
Yeah, and I'll note we've got Booker like a little bit behind in our 9-cat rankings of Steph Curry and Tyrese Maxey. If you look at the total value, this is like all a very tight tier where guys are like separated by minuscule points. I would agree in taking Booker ahead of those guys, not only because his ADP is ahead of those guys, because I think if you're picking towards the back half of the first round, you really want to be swinging for like a nuclear seasonal upside. I don't think like Steph has a nuclear seasonal upside in him anymore. I really don't think AD has like the nuclear ceiling upside in him anymore in the situations that they're playing in. Tyrese, maybe if Joel just doesn't play the whole year, like maybe that would be the case. But I think Booker has that with the new situation, like with the potential point guard role, with not a lot of other scoring options kind of around him. He's a very durable player. So I think that's a fine like late round selection. And I would note that even though we have him behind some of these other guys, I think if you're thinking about picking in late in the first round, you do want to be embracing a little bit more on the variance side of things, as we touched on. The name that I had for late first, and I'll just note before, we have a very clear mid first target. So if this player slips to late first, we have Anthony Edwards like very clearly as the 5th best player in fantasy and 9-cat this year. And I think the profile on Edwards is really, really good because the only category that he's like a slight negative really is field goal percentage. And I think in his age 24 season, he could actually make that neutral if he just gets to the line more and attacks the basket more. And he keeps like adding one big thing each year. Last year was a 3-point shooting. I'm sort of wondering if he takes the pedal off the 3-point shooting a little bit and becomes more of like a modern day, attack the basket over and over again, or take the three and kind of eliminate some of the mid range stuff. But he's super durable. He's super great. So if he falls to the back half, like he's an auto pick for me over any of these other guys. But I was going to build the team a little bit differently from the back half. As a drafter, one of the things that I love, and I think this is where we get into like artistic styles and differences between Mike and I in terms of the way we build. I think Mike will build teams that naturally are going to be higher upside, like more potential dominant teams, whereas I'm trying to like outmath you. And one of the ways I try to outmath you is I try to take bigs that don't miss free throws and shoot threes. That's like one of my favorite ways to kind of outmath the field, right? Is I can always count on building really good percentages teams if I take guards who don't shoot in the low percentages and I take bigs who make their free throws. I'll always have good percentages teams, and then I can work the wire around the other things or work trades on category needs that I have. So I took Karl-Anthony Towns as my late first pick. And it's interesting because with Karl-Anthony Towns, we're actually projecting a step back from last year. We're projecting his rebounds to come down a little bit, playing alongside Mitchell Robinson, which is our expectation to start the season. That might impact the blocks as well. But the percentages are so strong. I think the 3-point volume might improve with Mike Brown's offense, and I think the assists might improve with Mike Brown's offense. And those two things I think could really help from a category value standpoint on Karl-Anthony Towns. When you draft Cat, you're going to have to kind of supplement the steals blocks a little bit, but there's actually players that really fit well the rest of the draft that kind of fall into this range that can help you on the steals block side of things. And I think the percentages are just such a strong foundation. So I went with my late first, team builder as Karl-Anthony Towns. He's got the power forward and the center eligibility. So I've got a little bit of positional flexibility as well building there.
Yeah, I definitely feel you. I was able to get some bigs later that shoot the ball okay from the free throw line. But yeah, I definitely think Cat, who's always been, he was in the mix for being the number one player for a bit before. So I definitely think Cat's an awesome way to start. My early second round, so I'm pairing him with Devin Booker. I'm pretty sure we're going to mostly agree with this, that Amen Thompson is just a slam dunk pick. And really any spot in the second round. His ability to, just fill up the stat sheet, and he almost plays like a big, and I think his assists could be really big. He's been handling so much. You get the blocks, you get the steals. He's going to hurt you in free throw a little bit, but I think his field goal percentage is going to be like, okay. So yeah, and I think I'm convinced he's going to play a freaking ton, like Maxey-esque minutes, and just a role I want to play, like the faster speed. So Amen Thompson's a guy I want to have just wherever, just because he gives you just like, he's almost like Joker without the percentages, and with more defense, just because he could fill it up so many, and without the threes too. But Amen Thompson, the guy I want to have, and should also know on Yahoo, he is point guard, shooting guard, and small forward eligible.
Yes.
So that's really nice to kind of help out flexibility on building your team.
We have Amen ranked like 21st, so we have him ranked a little bit below. We have more like ranked mid or late seconds. I will say I would like to take him above ranking because I'm just like, this prototype of player is so valuable in terms of the steals and blocks. The one thing that and he's like an upside player in terms of, if you find the right ceiling, the right type of season here, you could end up with some wild steals block season, and the free throw percentage maybe doesn't hurt you enough because he's not getting the line kind of enough to really like ding you. I noted, like, I think he's a good pairing for someone like Karl-Anthony Towns. And I think if you're like trying to shoot the moon in terms of like taking on a little bit more risk, I think he's probably a pretty good pairing there. But I opted for one of Steph, Maxey, or Mobley here. Now, those guys like might not all be available. I actually think Mobley is a really good pairing for Booker too, in terms of like getting that center production and knowing that you're getting kind of an elite center. I think any of those guys would be kind of my targets here, just generally is what I'd be saying. It's a broad range with Steph and Maxey. I think the thing that I like about them is you get a lot of the 3-point volume, you get the scoring punch, which it's like one of the things that's difficult if you take Amen in the second round. Now Booker helps because he could be a scoring title candidate, is like it's harder to make up points in the mid rounds and later parts of the draft. So that's one of the things that's a little bit challenging to kind of make up. It's easier to make up the steals blocks that Amen brings to the table. So I went with Steph or Maxey here. They've got ADPs of like 13, 14, 15 in terms of the overall. So it's like they might not be there. Steph is 13, Maxey's 14. If you didn't get to them, Mobley's 18 and Amen's 17. And those guys I think are the next best selections. The guys that I'd be a little bit nervous of in kind of the early seconds, Kevin Durant, I think that's a little bit high for Kevin Durant. And then I note that people are like really, really high on James Harden this year. Like he's going like late first in a lot of spots because of the assist value that he brings. We're a little bit skeptical there. We've got him 15th, so we're a little bit less excited about Harden. But I think any of those guard selections, Amen does bring the positional flexibility that is not factored. I will note positional flexibility stuff is not factored into our values. The rankings have no idea what your positional value is. They just know your category scoring, right? Because different sites have different positional eligibility, so we try not to factor that in. So the positional flexibility for someone like Amen is a little bit of a value bump that probably makes him in the same tier as Steph and Maxey, who just have point guard eligibility, and Mobley, who just has center eligibility.
Yeah, and I'll say for people who subscribe to the Draft Kit, I did the Exploring the Ranks. I talked a little bit about that, where you can get the pockets of positional value too. So check it out on the site here. Let's go to our late second round pick here. I went with J-Dub to pair with Jokic. I think he's just solid. Like he's just going to be able to do everything. I like the increase in free throw rate last year. I'm not worried about the wrist injury. He might maybe miss a game or two to start the year, but I just think he's a really, really good category player. There's a couple options. Like I was considering Scotty Barnes, but I kind of gave a little bit of an edge to J-Dub here. So really like him. There are a couple other options. You could reach for Derek White here. You could reach for maybe Amen falls, maybe somebody else falls. But my official drafted pick is J-Dub.
And I think J-Dub is such a great foundational piece. Like Jokic, just there's not a lot of places that he's going to hurt you. So you're just building a really, really strong foundation. J-Dub kind of works with everybody. Because we're just doing like different iterations of the top picks. I was building a team with the idea of like, I have Shea, I don't have Jokic. And if I have Shea, I'm thinking at this area, like, okay, what pairs great with Shea? I probably want somebody who can get assists. I probably want somebody who's going to rebound the ball really well. I have a little bit of extra stock value built in, steals and blocks value built in on Shea because he's a top performer for guards. So I can afford to take a little bit back there. And I looked and I was very surprised at this ADP. I know in some places, Domantas Sabonis ends up going in like the late first round, early second. I think that's too rich. But ADP of 20 on Yahoo, I think is a really good value on Domantas Sabonis. And so if you have an SGA team that you're sitting there that you picked SGA at third or fourth or something like that, and it comes back around to you and Domantas Sabonis is sitting there, I think he's a really great pairing with SGA specifically in terms of the way that you can build out a roster. And I do think the other, like this side of the draft in terms of finding bigs, I think is a little bit less friendly than the other side of the draft in terms of the bigs where they come from an ADP perspective. So if you didn't get Wemby or Jokic, I don't mind getting the Sabonis in this kind of portion, because I think a lot of the other centers that we like, our ADPs are a little bit more tilted towards the other side of the draft. And those are a little bit more like the risk reward propositions. Whereas in terms of getting like an anchor center, I think this is maybe your last shot at it. Unless you're reaching a little bit for value in terms of an early drafter, which if you took Jokic or Wemby, you don't need Sabonis. Get into the wings, get into the guards, that type of stuff. But wanted to note for a SGA drafter, I think Sabonis is a really strong ADP value on Yahoo.
Yeah, could mix in Bam as well for another big if you wanted to go that route. But yeah, definitely think Sabonis. It should also add too, we talked about how Joe Val could maybe take a little bit of stealing off Jokic a little bit. Hey, he doesn't have the Kings are really thin. We're seeing Drew Eubanks play, and we saw Sabonis minutes really come down because they had a capable backup. Now they kind of don't. On top of the Keegan Murray injury.
One of the other things I wanted to note too is like we've talked about this a little bit in our divisional preview content, and if you have the advantage of drafting one of these top three guys, you just really kind of want to keep hitting singles the rest of the way, singles and doubles, because you don't need to swing because they have such a big advantage. And so there are times in the draft where our ranks might align that like a Kawhi Leonard looks like the best pick on the board. But if you have Jokic and SGA and Wemby, you don't need to take the risk associated with a Kawhi Leonard. And Sabonis is like the perfect no risk single double, keep pushing the line player, because just so durable, so consistent, so predictable in terms of what the production is going to be. I think J-Dub is similar in that regard. I think you'll see a lot of our early draft position teams, early first round teams, early odd rounds, late even round teams, we're going to swing a little bit slower. We're going to take the singles and the doubles because we know the advantages we've built in. The later round picks, we want to swing a little bit more.
For sure. So let's go to the early third. So I'm pairing him with Jokic and J Dub, and I'm swinging here. I think you
I don't
agree.
think it's a swing, but
No, I
let's
don't
go.
either. It's
Yeah.
Cooper Flag. I
Yeah.
think Cooper Flag is a guy. Depending on he's actually pretty far down in Yahoo. I think it's like 50th. But if you're picking that early, like if you're picking on the end, if your league is worth halfway, is anything decent, like
Yeah.
he's not going to make it back to you. So if you're really good about Flag as a top 25 style pick, I think he's going to really fill it up in the categories. I think he's going to be good in percentages, just like Amen-esque with more 3-pointers. I think he's got a crazy ceiling, and Jason Kidd plays his main guys a lot, and we're already seeing he can play at NBA level at age 18. So I think Cooper Flag's can absolutely smash on a team that should be competitive and just and they want to develop him. So really like Cooper Flag there. A lot of options, like you mentioned. This 2-3 turn. There's a lot of places to go, but Flag at the top of my list.
Yeah, we've got Flag ranked 17th in 9cat this year. So this is waiting a little bit for Flag based on where our rankings are. But as you mentioned, ADP for Yahoo is at 50th. He's 40th on NFBKC. So the field is basically saying he's more like an early 4th round player. But this is the type of player that people are going to reach for a little bit. And so, as you alluded to, if you're picking in the early third, you're not getting another shot, another bite at the apple. And if you're picking late third, well, it's such a good value. You might as well just take it and not risk rolling the dice on who comes back to you early fourth, because I think it'll be a similar value. So in my notes, I just wrote third round. All third round is Cooper Flag. Every iteration of a team that I'm building, Cooper Flag is the third round target for me. It's a combination of, I think the category production is going to be really, really compelling. And I think, he averaged 1.4 steals and 1.4 blocks per game at Duke in 30 minutes per game. He averaged just over four assists per game, 7.5 rebounds. He shot 84% from the line and 48% overall. We've got him from a projection standpoint this year. Where am I? Here are my projections. We've got him shooting 46% from the field, 83% for the line, with like 1.4 steals, 1.3 blocks, 17, 7, and 4 is basically what we're projecting for him. It's just going to be a great category scorer. And I think rookies generally, you think like, though there's a lot of variance. I think there's a lot of variance in terms of their ability to contribute to winning. But if you look at like the really high end prospects of all time, which I think Cooper Flag kind of fits in that bucket, there hasn't been a lot of variance in terms of the production, and these have generally been hits. So I don't view this as taking a risk. We have him as the 17th best player. If you're taking him in the 25, 26, 30 range, I think that's great. I will note that if you get sniped on Cooper Flag, if somebody else is drafting with the Cooper Flag enthusiasm that we have, I think some other good targets in the third round: Derek White, Trey Murphy, Jaren Jackson, Bam Adebayo. Jaren Jackson, Bam Adebayo, the types of bigs I like to invest in as well. Jaren's a little bit tricky because the field goal percentage just isn't usually that great, but the threes, the steals, the blocks, the free throw is really solid. And then Bam is like just really solid kind of all around. Those bigs, anchor bigs, I love to have an anchor big on my teams. And I would say that like Bam, Jaren is where that's my tier drop in terms of those guys are anchors to me. Everything after that is a little bit more like, we're wanting those guys to become anchors, either because we're betting on growth for them to happen statistically or health concerns.
Yeah, I have Jaren as my late third pick here, so I'm pairing him with Devin Booker and Amen Thompson. I mean, need a big, like you said.
But you take Cooper. But you take Cooper late third.
I would take Cooper. Yep.
Yeah.
I would take Cooper over him. I have my 150 rank higher as well. But I think you're getting, our projections, our seasonal projections have him, at 59 games, but you're getting all back-weighted production there. Like he might even I think he maybe misses a week or two. Like I don't think you're gonna be waiting too long for Jaren. And then like I said, I believe in the system. There's a lot of talk of him handling more. I think Jaren just really smashes here. Change his number, so he has to smash. But yeah, love Jaren. Definitely a guy I'm eyeing. I think the field's way too light on him overall. So I have it 27th. The ranks have him at 32. A guy I'm taking a ton of.
Yeah, and I have late third. I still have Cooper Flag just because I think you can still get him here based on where ADP is at across the industry on him. In terms of Jaren, no notes. I think Jaren's totally fine. We've got him ranked 32nd in 9cat, 33rd in 8cat. Perfect late third player to build around for me. And if you went guard like Mike's team did with Booker and Amen Thompson, you're starting to need the big there. So I think that's also like a note there. Whereas if I went with, Karl Anthony Towns and then went with like a Steph Curry or a Tyrese Maxey type thing, I can still add Jaren Jackson to that. Jaren Jackson fits really well to that perspective because Karl-Anthony Towns, you're going to want some of that blocks to fill in the void there, and you've got the percentage baked out. But Cooper Flag fits great too. So I'll have Cooper Flag on either of those third round picks.
Yeah, early fourth, I went with Dyson Daniels here. Projections love this guy. We have him at 26th. I'm a little bit lighter than 150, but really want to lock up a guard, and I want to get some steals. And he just was so good. So I haven't ranked 31st. I'm not too worried about Nickeil Alexander-Walker cutting into him, maybe a little bit. But I don't know. I think this rotation is going to be so tight. Like Nickeil Alexander-Walker went from like a really tight Minnesota rotation to like now we should be in another really tight one with more pace and better offense with Trey. So yeah, I want to invest in Hawks. I'm curious if you have KP on your perfect draft here, but yeah, I want like a Hawk. I've got another big Hawk on another perfect draft pick, but I think Dyson is just undervalued right now after a breakout season with the defensive stats. So really locking up the defensive stats here.
Agreed. Dyson's one of these guys, and this is sort of my knock on the Amen. Like where I don't know if I take Amen and Dyson together, for example. Like you are for sure like locking up steals in a way. Like you have that covered, but you're probably giving up points in a decent way early in the draft in terms of building through those two. So I think Dyson is a really good fit for the build that I was going with like Karl-Anthony Towns and then like a Steph or a Tyrese Maxey or something like that, because we need that steals production. We need to kind of fill that in there. So I think I love Dyson for that. I agree with you that I think he's undervalued just generally. We just to give context to our rankings, we downweight steals and blocks in our total rankings because the variance associated with them. So like if we gave them full category weight, Dyson Daniels would be like a top 15 pick. Just because he's so dominant in a way that Victor Wembanyama is so dominant in blocks. You select Dyson Daniels, you have a top half steals team, like pretty much immediately in terms of the production we had last year. We'll see if he's able to carry that over again, but he's been really great all his career on a permanent basis in steals.
Yeah, and I'll say if I could just add, I like to get my defensive stuff early too, just because a lot of the guys later, they're a little more the like points, 3-pointy guys, and that's kind of just the back end of my draft.
It's interesting how we build because I tend to try to build. I know I'm going to get kind of low turnover, a high threes, and then like good enough steals blocks contributions late. Like those are the types of players that I tend to draft late. So I tend to get the base on points and percentages early and like try not to hurt myself too much in there. The other name I gave here, who I think is a really good pairing with Amen Thompson teams, by the way, is Austin Reeves. I think like Austin Reeves is a great pairing with an Amen Thompson team because you get some of the points and some of the shooting, the 3-point shooting and different things kind of built in. And if you've got like a Booker, Amen Thompson, Austin Reeves, like that's a really nice kind of backcourt pairing all together, assuming Amen can carry the bulk of the work in the steals blocks. But the name that I noted here, that if you're picking towards the back half, I think sometimes you got to swing in a way that is uncomfortable. And this is where Joel Embiid, I think early fourth round, we've got him ranked 33rd. I do think some of this matters in types of league format. Like if you're in a weekly setting league, I might be less likely to take the swing. But I do think when you're playing in the back half of draft, sometimes you got to swing big. And Joel Embiid is a player that if he can play 55 games, he will finish as a top 2-round player that's being drafted in the early fourth round. And if you went with a roster that, let's say you went like Booker and Amen or something like that, like you skipped past Cat, you skipped past Jaren for whatever reason, or you got sniped on Jaren and Bam. Yeah. I think Joel, like if you don't have a center, an anchor center by this point, I think Joel is a player that you should probably consider here and embrace a little bit more of that risk. So I had him early fourth is where I'd take him if I would, but this is one of those things that if he fell to the back half of the fourth, I wouldn't take him because I feel like I have so much foundation built up. It's more about where I'm drafting. And in the back half of the first round, I think you need to take a swing somewhere. And I think Joel is a good swing to take in the early fourth.
Yeah, I have him pretty high in the 150 as well. And some people were a little bit like nervous. Like, what's so bad about picking him? And like, you know, I have him 38. Like you said.
Yeah. So if you picked him at 40, like what? Like okay, if it's look, it could be a frustrating season with Joel. But when you pick like 10th through 12th, it can be a frustrating season when you hit on all your picks and you're still like third in the league because it's hard to win from the back half. So I'd rather kind of take the swing in some of these instances.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, he was going like fifth, sixth, seventh like last year. So
Yeah.
and he's practicing. He had a good scrimmage game over the weekend.
Yeah.
Played next to Dembona as well, for what it's worth. There. So let's go to late fourth. I'll let you go first this time.
Yeah. Late fourth. So this was the idea. I was building this Shea, Sabonis, Cooper flag start. And for me, a Shea, Sabonis, Cooper flag start feels really good on points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, and turnovers. Feels really good in those categories. Does not feel good on threes. I don't feel like I have enough threes with that group. So for me, late fourth is one of our favorites, Desmond Bane. I love the 3-point production you get from Desmond Bane, where I think it's going to be even more focused and emphasized in Orlando in terms of what he brings to the floor. I think his role in Memphis was a little bit more all court scoring. I think in Orlando, it's going to be like pop those threes, get them up, get them out. We need the 3-point volume here. He's really good on the percentages side of things. He doesn't really hurt you anywhere. There are a couple different versions of like 3-point gunners you can get on this side of the draft. We mentioned earlier that, in the third round, you could get like a Derek White or a Trey Murphy or different things like that. I think this round, yes, he doesn't shoot as many threes per games as those guys, but I think there's less risk in taking a guy that's a little bit more like those guys that you take in the third round, early third rounds that are a little bit more category specialists. I think there's just a little bit of risk. And if the category isn't great for some reason, for whatever reason that year, then like you cede some value. I don't see much risk in Desmond Bane in the late fourth round. I think like it's another single and move it on and keep, leveraging the advantage you had in an early pick.
Yep, with you there. So my next pick is for late fourth. This is a bit of a swing, but the I don't have a true point guard yet, so I went with John Morant here. He's depressed in value right now because of the injury. I think maybe there's a chance he plays opening night. And like I said, with the Jaren pick on the other team, by the way, I think that you're paying for back weighted production, which I would like, and I think that the Grizzlies are going to really push up his offensive role. So really like John Morant. The 9 cat rankings don't love this pick. We have him 63 over there, but again, you're getting back weighted production and you're taking off not much. And so I have him on mine I'm at 49. But yeah, this is a part of the draft where like I didn't want to wait another 24 picks to have like a point guard covered up. So I was like, okay, I got to have a point guard here. I've got 3 really good, well-rounded players in Cooper Flag, J-Dub, and Jokic. So taking a little bit of a swing on John Morant, I just think he's in a pretty big spot this season.
My only caveat would be, do you need a point guard? You've got Jokic, he's a point guard. You got J-Dub, who's like 4 or 5 assists a game. You got Flag, who's like 4 assists a game. Like, I don't know that you need a point guard. That would be my only retort. I'm a Ja fan this year. It's more on points based. Ja and category based has always had his like limitations because of the turnovers and the threes. But yeah, I think the price discount on Ja is enough this year that he's in range in all formats, whereas most years he's been like wildly overpriced from our perspective. All right, early fifth, Mike, you've built out your team with Jokic and with Cooper Flag and with John Morant and with J-Dub. Where are you adding to the mix now?
So need some blocks. Don't have any nickel and dominant with Flag.
Yep.
J-Dub block a little bit. Jokic will get a little bit, but getting a block guy here, and it's Miles Turner. Like what he did with Giannis. Was a little bit worried about the light usage the first couple games, but had strong usage with Giannis. Doc Rivers plays his guys a lot of minutes. I think that Miles Turner is going to play more than he did with Carlisle. Shoots the threes as well. I'm a little bit light there. So Miles Turner pairing with Jokic is such a dominating way to have your bigs covered in the first 5 rounds. So really, really like Miles Turner. I'm very high on him. I think I'm higher than the ranks are. I'm 36 in the 150, and the ranks are 42. So I'm a little higher on Miles. 42, it's a minutes thing. I think he's going to beat our minutes. So very, very into Miles Turner. One of the best picks. One of my favorite picks in drafts this year.
Yeah, and I think no notes. I think Miles Turner is an ideal pairing with Jokic. If you had the Wemby version, I wouldn't take Miles Turner here. I just think it's kind of unnecessary. So this is where it gets into the art of like making sure that you're kind of building a roster that's balanced throughout. I had the alternative to this that I had is like the same thing with Miles Turner, but like more risk, which is Kristaps Porzingis. And so I think I would take Miles Turner ahead of Kristaps Porzingis. We have them like back to back basically in rankings. I think we've got Turner 42nd and we've got Kristaps 39th, something like that. I think the ceiling on Kristaps is better, but I don't think you need the ceiling when you're one of these top selected teams. So I think Kristaps would be more of like, if he falls to mid fifth round, I'd probably be looking at Porzingis as like taking the swing a little bit more. But I think those guys are both very similar, and I think they fit. Whether you took like if you took a Jokic team or an SGA team, like you need some blocks a little bit, probably. And so if you took a Wemby team, I think you're looking more, this is where you're probably looking more at like guard wing area. And it could be in the Desmond Bain, it could be in the like reaching a little bit on like somebody we like a little bit later, like a Kobe White or something like that, where like you might be positionally trying to like make the pieces fit a little bit better. You don't necessarily need the blocks that you can get here.
Yeah, worth noting, Porzingis is playing 15 minutes per half in the preseason, so all those concerns we had are pretty much gone, in my opinion. So yeah, really like Kristaps.
Okay, let's go to late fifth. So you, as we were talking through, you've built out the Dyson Daniels, the Devin Booker, the Amen Thompson, and the Jaren Jackson type of room. So you basically got your point guard through power forward positions. Mm-hmm. You can play Jaren at the center position, but what are you doing here at the end of round 5?
I'm playing him at the power forward position because I am taking Jalen Duren here. I'm mildly concerned about this hamstring injury, but I think that his ability to shoot free throws better, on top of excellent rebounding, I mean, he's just going to rebound the hell out of it, and he's still going to have really, really strong field goal percentage. And I think his passing is underrated. I'm kind of buying the Pistons buzz with extra pace. I think that's good for him because he's a really good floor runner. So I think that on top of just a system that's really suiting to his skill, and just being a freak rebounder, low-key good passer, really good percentages, he's an awesome pick here. So really like Jalen Duren. Needed to get my classic big here, and I like how he fits with the guys I have.
Yep. I think Duren's a player that I generally am optimistic on in terms of where he's at in his career and betting on like kind of a breakout. But you'll note like this is why I said like anchor big for me drops off after like Jaren Bam. Because like Embiid, I want him to be an anchor big, obviously, but the health makes it so that I don't know if that's going to be the case. Duren, it's like this is going to be his age 22 season, which is crazy to think of because this is his 4th season in the NBA. He's so young. Can we get that big like jump from a points perspective? Like we've got the rebounds, we know that's locked in. Can we get the blocks jump? He's only been at like 1 block per game in his career so far. And so this is why I say like the anchor is like a little bit of an issue. The good news is for the team, if you're building a team that went like guard at the start, like Booker and let's say Steph or Maxey or something like that, let's say you didn't get Amen, that was like a good field goal percentage guard. Duren's a really great pair for those like lower field goal, like a Trae Young type team, or like let's say you open Booker Young or something in the back end, which I think would be fine too. Duren is a really good complement for them because of the field goal percentage that he's going to bring to the table. 65% for his career, 69% from the field last year. Such a big contributor there. So I think Duren's a guy that, even though it's his 4th season in the league and you're thinking, oh, like he probably is what he is, he's only 22. So I think there is a good step forward to potentially take there. The name that I had for late 5th was actually the name that you have for early 6th. So let's just talk about this player together, which is Kobe White. We're higher than the market on Kobe White by a good bit. We've got him ranked 45th in 8-cat, 50th in 9-cat. His ADP is trending closer to like, what is it, like 70, 60, 70. So you can get him like pretty comfortably late 5th, early 6th. I'm trying to find the Yahoo ADP on him now. Yeah, 63rd on the Yahoo ADP. And then NFBKC, he's at 55th. So that one, you might be more like late 5th that you have to kind of get him. But I think with Kobe White, it's sort of like Desmond Bain to me, like similar types of players in terms of I don't think he's as good of a player as Desmond Bain, but he's going to play in an offense that's much faster. So I think his points are going to be commensurate with Desmond Bain. He's going to have a larger piece of the pie in terms of the usage. He's going to get boards and assists just by being in a faster paced offense, and he's going to jack up threes. And the second half that he had was unbelievable last year. So like there's a small chance, like I always downplay like March, April production because it's coming against, some teams that are not fully engaged. But there's a chance that if any of that's real, like Kobe White is really a 3rd round player this year. Mm-hmm. Like I think this is a small miss, big hit situation for a player that's in the prime of their career on a team that plays really fast. And he doesn't miss games usually. I know he's been hurt to start the preseason. And they also are a team that doesn't really like tank or do anything to sit their guys. So I think Kobe White's like super, super solid late fifth, early sixth.
Yep. And like you said, 25, 4-4 on 49% from the field, 91% from the line, added a steal.
And that's a second round player.
Yeah.
That's
absurd. So, just an absolute smash pick. Like I said, you could get that kind of score heavy stuff a little bit later. So, like I said, I kind of like to get my defensive stuff and my team laid out and then just hammer these like high upside scoring guys a little bit later.
Yep. So my early sixth, no, like we're just like kind of trailing each other here a little bit. My early sixth, I noted that for NFBKC, if you use their ADP, this is where you kind of take this guy. You have him a lot later in your perfect draft because on Yahoo you can wait to take this guy. But similar to Jalen Duren, Onyeka Okongwu, who like had the breakout year last year, Machine got whooped by Onyeka Okongwu last year as we just did the man versus machine. We've got Onyeka Okongwu ranked 51st in 9Cat, so we've got him ranked ahead of Jalen Duren. A lot of that is because he's just like a little bit of a better free throw shooter. He does a little bit more on like the blocks threes category area of things. He is ranked 93rd on Yahoo. So you will be hearing about Onyeka Okongwu a lot later in this draft based on where Mike's perfect draft would be. But it's pretty wild because Onyeka Okongwu is essentially like already like a better, comparing him to Jalen Duren, he's a better scorer. He's a worse rebounder. He's the same on blocks and better on steals, and then gives you like half a three a game with like better free throw percentage or similar free throw percentage. We'll see if Duren keeps keep holding his growth, but not as much field goal percentage. And I think these two guys, Onyeka is going to be in his age 25 season. I think these two guys are on good contending teams, whereas like Walker Kessler, who I like his profile just as much as these guys, but I just don't know about end of season, like what they're going to do with Walker Kessler. And so like these two guys are the young contending teams, like stable assets that I kind of like at the center position if you're not able to get one of those anchor bigs.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of overlap with Kristaps and Onyeka Okongwu, so it might turn you off that Okongwu's probably coming off the bench, but I feel pretty good. You're going to get like 23, 24 minutes, even with Porzingis like healthy. And then obviously if Porzingis goes down, then you're really cooking. We saw him play, 30 minutes per game when Capella was out. So, yeah, and again, just an excellent category player. So you really look at Okongwu. I'll have him later. I cheated because Yahoo has him far out.
Okay, let's go to, we are now in late sixth territory, which we both have the same guy for late sixth. So, Mike, I'll let you do the sales pitch here, but I think this is just a fantastically comfortable pick for the late sixth round.
Yeah, it's Peyton Pritchard. I feel like he's going to start. I think he's going to play a ton. We saw him play, 20 minutes per game last year off the bench with a healthy Tatum, with a mostly healthy Jaylen Brown, with a mostly healthy Derek White, with Kristaps in the mix, with Horford in the mix. Like, there's such a path here that you get Peyton Pritchard, who is, I should know, a pretty good category player. Shot 47% as a guard, 85% from the line. His assists are going to come up. Like, he's pretty strong bet for, like, upper teen scoring, 5 assists, great percentages, over 3 threes per game. Like, he's going to just absolutely destroy this ADP on top of 82 games 2 years ago, 80 last year. He just should not be going here. He should be going almost at like the 4 or 5 turn, in my opinion. I think Peyton Pritchard's an excellent pick this year.
Yeah, we are fully aligned here. And when I talked about like just trying to hit singles kind of the rest of the way when you have these strong teams, I also talked about how when you have like Jokic or Wemby or even Shea to some extent, the one area that you're like just a little bit light of perfection is usually the 3-point stuff. Mm-hmm. So getting these 3-point guys that you feel like are very, very good values for the place that you're selecting them and very durable players in very stable situations like Bane, like Pritchard. You could even make the case for Kobe White if you wanted to reach up into the 5th on Kobe White. Makes a ton of sense to me. Like, I love that group of guards for this pairing that we have kind of throughout. And you mentioned it, Pritchard, from a category-based player, like he shot 47% from the field the last 2 years, and he shot 5% from the line in his career. He doesn't turn the ball over a ton. We'll see how that gets pushed this year. Just 1 turnover per game last year in 28 minutes. Obviously, his role will change this year without Jason Tatum around. And then 3.2 threes per game. That is like a huge category boon. If he's 3.5 threes per game, that's like a 3 per game more than your favorite 3-point shooter per game. So like he's a really big beneficiary. I know Austin mentioned this in the divisional preview stuff when talking about Peyton Pritchard from a category based upside. So I think Austin would approve of this as well. We love Peyton Pritchard this year. And he's a guy that also showed in his starts that they can play him a ton and he's comfortable playing a ton. So we've got him like assumed as the starter now. We've changed that since the divisional preview stuff because we've got more information there that suggests he is confirmed as a starter. We think the sky's the limit for Peyton Pritchard this year. I think like you're getting him late sixth. I would be surprised if late sixth is a top 70 player essentially. I would be surprised if he's not a top 60 player this year. Like I feel like he's got a really solid ceiling to him. And I will note that like he's a guy that in our rankings, I talked about this a little bit on Man vs. Machine, because we backfill games in terms of like for the category based rankings. He's a guy that I think is actually undervalued a little bit in our rankings because you're not having to replace as many projected games from him. So I think in some ways, like we've got him projected at 62nd in 9cat. I think in some ways he's like a little bit undervalued in terms of where he might actually finish at the end of the season, because in our rankings, we're giving everybody else those games filled that in other scoring systems like Basketball Monsters, Player Radar, and different things, they're not giving you filled games on the games missed. So I think in some ways, like, Peyton Pritchard is a little bit undervalued even by our rankings. And so we think, just a really, really solid pick this year, going outside the top 60 on both Yahoo and on NFBKC.
Nice.
Okay.
So let's go to the 7th. I'll go first here. I took Asar Thompson, need a little bit of defensive stats here. So I love him. We talked about him on Man vs. Machine. I think he's just going to be, we talked about getting defensive stats to go with Joker. I think he's going to do that. I think he's going to play a lot. I think he's going to fill up assists a little bit more this year. I just want to bet on the Thompsons. Just bet on genetics. So I really like Asar. I'm a little bit higher than you are on him, but he's a player on top of a couple other guys we're going to talk about soon that I really like. But I do actually the next guy we're going to talk about. It's a tough decision, but I went with the ADP lean. I took Asar first, but really like Asar.
Yeah, so Asar we've got ranked at like 80th in 9cat. I'll take the non-sexy Asar, the vanilla ice cream Asar, in terms of getting some of the steals box production, which I agree this is a good window to target the steals block stuff. Once you get into the 6th, 7th rounds, these are where I'm looking at some of these category specialists a little bit more to pair with the base that I have. I took OG Anunoby. I just think like the scoring is more straightforward. The threes also, which like one of the things I noted before, when you're taking some of these early guys, you sometimes might be a little bit light threes. So we knocked home Desmond Bane. We knocked home Peyton Pritchard. Maybe we're good on threes now, but I'm going to keep adding to it. Those 3 steals, blocks, OG Anunoby is my pick here. We're expecting all of the Knicks guys to play a little bit less than they've played in past years with Tom Thibodeau, with the new coaching change with Mike Brown. And I actually think that's going to be a little bit of a positive for OG Anunoby. I think he's got a better chance to stay healthy this year. I think the field goal percentage is more likely to be around that 48% marker. He was awesome last year. I mean, last year he finished with 18 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 1.5 steals, 2.3 threes a game, 47.5% from the field, 81% from the line. That's a top 4 round player. And people just don't view Anunoby as like a player that has any upside to him, because they're like, oh, he's in his age 28 season. Like, he's not the player you're going to target here. He's got an NFBKC ADP of 62. I think on Yahoo he's at 72. So anywhere in this like late 6, early 7 range, like early 7 is maybe cheating a little bit. He might not be here at early 7, but maybe you could push Pritchard and flip-flop those two. But I think OG Anunoby is just like a really solid pick. And I was encouraged by the durability last year, which was the one thing that was like a little bit of a concern. We've now gone 2 of the last 3 years with 67, 74 games, and then 50 games in the year that he got traded. So like I'm hoping that we're on the right side of durability with OG Anunoby if the minutes come down this year as well.
Yeah, I think the role change is going to be good with Mike Brown on top of the push transition and more corner threes. I think it's going to kind of suit him more than it's going to kind of like hurt the Jalen Brunsons of the world. Like I think Brunson gets hurt a little bit from Brown, and like kind of everyone, and we'll talk about Mikal getting pushed up from the transition, and the easier buckets they're going to get, and not just like, oh, Jalen Brunson go dribble it 15 times and score the basket. Like I feel like they're going to diversify their offense more. So late 7 for me. This is probably the toughest choice of the draft, especially with the way he's been playing. I put Matas Buzelis here. I think Buzelis is just in such a position to smash. He looks great in the preseason. The usage is really strong. We talked about the system. He's a really well-rounded category player. Steals, blocks, assists a little bit. Percentage is pretty good. So he's a guy who could just absolutely destroy this ADP. So very high on Matas. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, and this is where our drafts start to kind of coalesce now. I would also say on this side of the board, there's some players that you get a mix of like potentially great category based value because of where our ranks are and where their ADPs are, and then you get a mix of guys that are like slight value in terms of our ranks versus the ADP, but have like a ceiling to them that are really really compelling. And I would kind of mix and match those, right? And so I think we'll go here with early eighth, a player that's like a ranking value that I think doesn't have like a nuclear ceiling, but I think is just a really solid value. But Matas is the like if everything breaks right, Matas is a top 5 round pick this year,
Mm-hmm.
and he's the leading scorer for the Bulls, and he's doing it at an efficient clip, and he's contributing blocks in a sneaky category positionally. So I like the swing. I like pairing a swing with a little bit of less of a swing. And so that's where we'll get into Cam Johnson with the early eighth round target. Cam Johnson is a player that we talked about in the divisional preview podcast that we just really think that he's going to have a big bump in efficiency. And we're not even projecting that big of a bump. We're projecting him to shoot 47.8% from the field. But the 3-pointers per game, we're expecting almost 3 threes per game playing alongside Nikola Jokic. I think the minutes per game could potentially ascend to career highs for Cameron Johnson. And we've got him ranked 49th in 9 category base scoring. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's not going to turn the ball over playing with Jokic. They're going to be in a super efficient offense that's going to have offense everywhere. And this is like consensus. You can get him here. He's 87th on NFBKC in terms of their ADP. In their rank or their ADP on Yahoo from their rankings perspective, he's 92nd. So like you can easily get him in the early eighth, and I think he's just a tremendous value. I don't think he's like a breakout player, but I think the system in the surrounding supporting cast is going to make things very comfortable and easy for Cameron Johnson this year.
Yep, totally with you there. Similar vein here for the late eighth. Mikal Bridges, really light on Yahoo, like to
Yeah.
a fault. I don't know how you like. Is Mikal Bridges talk about hitting singles? Like he's the ultimate hitting single player.
Yep.
I think the pace is going to be really good. Like we talked about the OG. There's just no way Mikal like misses this value by more than like 2 or 3 rounds, just because he's just not going to miss games.
Yeah, he has an ADP of 73 on NFBKC. So this is like a Yahoo specific value.
Mm-hmm.
But man, this value where it starts to pair with what we talked about, that early first round drafter where you're just trying to hit singles the rest of the way, it just fits so perfectly. Let everybody else swing, keep packing in your singles. You get kind of solid production across the board with Mikal Bridges, never misses games. Yeah, super solid there.
Yeah, early night talked about Onyeka Okongwu. Don't need to talk about that again. And then Kevin Porter Jr. I put for the team 2, needing a point guard, needing a little bit of a swing here with that late team. So I think his minutes are going to be strong. I think the pace is going to be good. Just was too good in his 30 games at the Bucks. So just a really high upside player with a little bit of downside in the field goal percentage. But I think everywhere else he's going to be a pretty good spot. So really like Kevin Porter Jr. when you're getting close to 100.
Yeah, and I think that's another like big swing in terms of the points, rebounds, assist stuff could really pan out in a big way. If anything happened to Giannis, the usage would be really great. You do worry about the percentage stuff, so you got to like I want to insulate a team that has like fairly well protected percentages around them. But there's not a player that's available this late that could end up having like a 25-5 type season. Like
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't exist past the eighth round. And like Kevin Porter Jr. is, has had a season that's like not that far away from that in his career. So I think he's a fine selection where he goes in these late picks. And yeah, he had the last year in Houston, he was at 19.2 points, 5.3 rebounds, 5.7 assists, 1.4 steals per game, despite poor percentages. Like that upside does not exist in these rounds.
Yep, for sure. So another player who I think has just way too far down on Yahoo. It's Zach Edey. Definitely going to miss the first 2, 3, 4 weeks of the season, but it's just so hard to deny what he did in the postseason. We saw him play like 30 minutes a night against OKC. We thought he would barely play like low 20s. We saw him play 32 and 33 in the 2 playing games, and then we saw him play 31 minutes a night in the ECL era to close out the regular season. So again, you have to wait a little bit, but I'm okay with it. I think he's going to be a very good player. I think he shot the ball okay from the free throw line. 70%. You take that for a guy that is going to be, I don't know, double machine.
Yep.
He's going to block probably 1.5 shots a game, maybe more in his second season. I just don't get this ranking. I get, again, there's a little bit of injury risk, but you just I don't care if you're playing it safe or whatever. If he's there at 110, I don't know what your build is, but like just take him. He's just way worth it. I think he's gonna just smash with the Isolo again.
Yeah, this is one of your favorite targets in the points based leagues as well. I will note that I think like category based leagues, it's really interesting because he was so dominant in college. He was over 2 blocks per game. He was almost 13 rebounds per game and 25 points per game. Obviously, this isn't the Big Ten playing in the NBA, but like there's upside here. Like he averaged 9 points and 8.5 boards in 21.5 minutes per game last year. If you just expand that out, like on a per 36 basis, obviously I'm not going to play 36 minutes, but it's 15.5 points and 14 rebounds a game. So let's say he plays 28 minutes. Like we're basically splitting the difference between where he ended up, and you get something like, 10.5, 11 points, 12 boards a game, something like that. And then if the blocks come at the level that they were at the collegiate level, you get 2 blocks per game. Now we're talking about that's like Walker Kessler 6th, 7th round production that's available here in the 10th. On Yahoo. He goes around pick 100 in NFBKC, the higher stake stuff, with a range of 72 to 137, so like a wide range in terms of where he's gone. But yeah, he's one of these like mid double-digit round centers or whatever that like you just can't replicate out there, and has shown success. Like his production last year was not worth much less than this, so he doesn't have to grow a lot to be able to do that. And without Desmond Bane around, he should. It's basically rookies and on from here. So we can just go into like at this point of the draft, these rounds, you're just picking the upside swings that you think can hit the best. So Mike, why don't you roll through the rookies that we love drafting the most this year?
Yeah, we'll just group like you said. We've got VJ Edgecombe. I would take him first based on the ADP. I think he's got a really, really high floor. I think he's going to probably start based on Nick Nurse's comments. Trey Johnson, worth noting. And actually, we had to probably move Cam Whitmore down a little bit in the ranks. I did not like how he did not get the overlap with Chris Middleton and Keyshawn George. That's with Bilal Coulibaly out. So I think Cam Whitmore may need a Chris Middleton injury to pop off. But I think Trey Johnson, who did sub in first, did get overlap with all the first unit. I really like that for a guy who could really, really fill it up. Just a really awesome skilled scorer and a good offense. Not like good offense as far as like they're going to be good, but they were up there in pace. They were really getting pace in the last game I saw last night. I think they're going to play fast. So I think taking a shot on Trey Johnson there makes sense. And then Ace Bailey. He's just been too good. The usage is strong. He's a freak athletically. He's guarding on ball. Like if they're going to put him on Devin Vassell and Kevin Durant, like they want this guy to grow and they want this guy to play a lot. So you're going to get a lot of playing time and a player that thinks a really good permanent player. He's a rookie. He's probably not going to be good for field goal percentage, but if that hits and you're playing in a head-to-head where the percentages won't like nuke you, Ace Bailey's a guy I want to take. And then Dylan Harper, again, betting on talent, second pick in the draft. Could argue like in a non-Cooper Flag year, he would have gone number one. He looks really good. Another guy I just want to take a shot on here and just betting on talent on Draft Capital. So those are the guys I really want to close out my drafts with.
Yeah, and I think those guys are all players that you're expecting the bulk of your contributions to come in the second half of the season when the roster ahead of them is kind of like sorted itself out a little bit. They've gotten their feet wet as rookies, so I wouldn't be expecting kind of immediate production for them. So like understand kind of where you've drafted there. But I think in general, these guys are kind of different in the ways that they'll contribute. I think Edgecombe will be a little bit like Edgecombe and Harper might be a little bit similar in terms of they might be like a little bit of production kind of across the board. I think Harper has a little bit more ceiling to him, but he's got like more competition to I shouldn't say more competition, but similar competition to jump, more competition for immediate minutes. I think Edgecombe's got the immediate minutes, but the usage competition is a big deal. But I think there'll be a little bit more production across the board. I think Trey Johnson and Ace Bailey will be a little bit more scoring heavy in terms of where their production comes from. I did really like for Ace Bailey, one of the biggest concerns I have on that profile is efficiency. And I just loved the way that Will Hardy is using him so far early in the season, where it's like, we're not going to give you the ball to initiate offense and like lead you into taking a lot of like long contested twos that you have to like dribble to create your separation. We're going to get the ball to you on the move, and you're already going to be able to create some of the separation because you're catching the ball on the move a lot. And I think that was really, really encouraging for me in terms of the way that they're going to use Ace Bailey in Utah. So I'm with you on those four rookies. Those are the guys I'm drafting the most in best ball as well. There's also some names that, if you're drafting in these Yahoo-based leagues where you have IR spots, like you want to be thoughtful of in terms of where you're drafting. And one of the names that we're targeting a lot in best ball stuff, which like the advantages aren't even as great as they would be in leagues where you have IR spots, is DeJounte Murray. Targeted return date of 1/1, January 1st. The Pels have 48 games after that, so you're going to have to wait a good bit of time. But ultimately here, I think DeJounte Murray is, a top 5 round category producer when he's been healthy the last few years, and a player that's well worth an IR stash later in the draft, and is sort of like buried from an ADP perspective. You need to make sure that you have IR spots. You can't do this if you're in a league where you have like 3 bench spots and no IR spots. Like you can't hold on a guy for 3 or 4 months or 3 months to like figure that out. But I do think DeJounte Murray is worth kind of a late round mid IR stash for Yahoo leagues.
Yep, love it.
All right, that will wrap the perfect draft edition. Mike, do you want to run through what a team might look like in terms of what a perfect draft might ultimately kind of end you up with here? I know you did a couple versions of like what these 2 teams might look like.
So team 1, I've got John Morant, VJ Edgecombe, Cooper Flagg, J-Dub, Jokic, Peyton Pritchard, Asar Thompson, Miles Turner, Mikal Bridges, and Onyeka Okongwu, DeJounte Murray stash. Replacing him with one of those rookies, and also Trey Johnson. Team 2, Dyson Daniels, Devin Booker, Amen Thompson, Jaren Jackson Jr., Jalen Duren, Kobe White, Matas Buzelis, Cam Johnson, Kevin Porter Jr., Zach Edey, IR stash, Ace Bailey, and Dylan Harper to wrap it up.
Yeah, and so I think those teams have not only good like categorical balance to them, but they also have kind of the upside balance to them. A little bit more upside tilted on the team that's drafting from the back half of the draft, which I think is something you want to keep in mind as well if you're drafting out there. Basically, through the first 8 rounds, I mostly like we're giving alternatives to different types of builds, but like the Shea type of build that I had was like a Shea at point guard, Desmond Bane at shooting guard, Cooper Flagg at small forward, OG Anunoby power forward, Sabonis center, Pritchard guard, Bridges forward, Turner utility, and then like fill it out from there, right? With some of these like later round upside targets. You can, from the early spots of the draft, take some of those later round upside targets and don't worry, you've built the foundation for your team. Don't worry about not swinging once you get to like round 8, 9, 10 on those early round teams. But I think these are the types of builds that you want to have. Category balance in terms of where you're getting them, ADP value balance in terms of where our rankings are, and then upside balance based on where you're drafting, right? More upside the later that you're drafting in the first round. And I think that's the way to think through having a perfect draft.
Yep. And this is for we'll have that on the site on Yahoo, and then I'll have the ESPN web app as well. So if you're drafting on ESPN, this should still help you a lot, but I'll have it on the site to have it more clear as well, because their rankings are really weird this year.
Yep. So that'll do it for the Perfect Draft Edition. Always a fun episode to get you ready for draft season here. Upcoming this week, we've got the Win Totals podcast, which will be with Mike Gallagher, Sam Jaffarinia. Sam went 5-0 on the Win Totals pod last year, so we could not do the Win Totals pod without Sam after he goes 5-0. I went 2-3. I'm getting relegated. Out. So it'll be Austin Yamada, Mike Gallagher, and Sam Jaffarinia covering the Win Totals podcast. We have our draft kit going. If you are drafting your season-long team this weekend in anticipation of the start of the season, check out our draft kit. It's on the subscribe page at Establish the Run. Very affordable draft kit, and gets you all of Mike Gallagher's top 150. It gets you all of our rankings. It's just $25.99. Points-based rankings, category-based rankings, auction values, sleepers, busts, exploit default rankings, preseason content notes, all the different things that you need, depth charts to kind of have you ready for your draft. So you can check that out on the subscribe page. We've got the other premium product offerings going. We've got our best ball package as well, $59.99 for the best ball season. I've still got like 75 more drafts to knock out before the start of the season, so we'll be in the draft streets as well, doing some of the Q&As, doing the live streams that we've been doing, along with all the other content there. The ETR NBA bundle for the season-long projections are up for the season-long and in-season projections are up on the site as well, with the draft kit and the in-season content. And then our props product, we'll be having some announcements later this week on improvements that we've made to the props product this year, but pricing is out, available on the site as well. So we're just a week away from the start of the NBA season. We're really excited. We're in the thick of it and monitoring the preseason. Mike's cranking out notes each and every day on what happened in the night before on the preseason site. So lots of good stuff over at Establish the Run behind the paywall. You can check us out there at establishtheRun.com/subscribe-NBA. Till then, next time, the Win Totals podcast with Mike Gallagher, Sam Jaffarinia, and Austin Yamada. they'll be breaking it down for you, the bets that you need to be making for this upcoming season. We'll see you next time.